All right. Hello and welcome back to the Rossi Brothers Sports Podcast. My name is John, joined as always by my brother Adam. And today we are also joined by a special guest, Adam.
Yeah, what's up, y'all? Really excited to be joined today by special guest coach Josh Wolf. Coach Wolf is a triathlon coach, speaker, and athlete. He has over 20 years of experience in coaching and behavior modification, working with athletes, individuals, and businesses. He's a 6-time Ironman World Championship Qualifier and a 9-time All-American triathlete, and also competes in ultra-distance cycling. A suicide survivor and wellness mentor, his mission is to spread joy, hope, and purpose. He calls the Kansas City area home, where he resides with his wife, 2 stepsons, and 2 dogs. Welcome, Coach Wolf, and thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Cool.
We're really excited to have you.
For sure.
It's going to be a good day, I think.
Yeah. So as we mentioned in your bio, Coach, you are an accomplished triathlete, very accomplished triathlete. Tell us a little bit about how you got involved in endurance sports.
Yeah, so I was kind of looking for something to stay out of trouble. I was lifting weights in college, and I didn't do anything in high school, middle school. The last organized sport I played was 3rd grade baseball, and I was awesome to the point where they just couldn't have me on the team anymore, so they asked me to leave. But I'm kidding. I was horrible. So anyway, so, right? Yeah. So lifting weights, and I'm in college, and I'm like, hey, I need a goal. I should run a marathon because that's what most people think, right? And so I called a buddy of mine that was kind of a runner at the time. His name's Paul. And I said, hey, Paul, do you want to do a marathon? He's like, yeah, I've always wanted to do that. So we ran in, and I just kind of really fell in love with this endurance sports idea. There's this guy, Lance Armstrong. You've probably heard of him. He was real big back then when I was in college. And he was riding bikes. So I decided, hey, I want to ride a bicycle, bought a bike and started doing that. And pretty soon, right out of college, a friend of mine was like, hey, Josh, you should do a triathlon. So I said, okay. And triathlon can be any distance. A triathlon is any type of swim, bike, run. Oftentimes when we think of triathlon, we think of Ironman, which is like the epitome, the longest one-day sporting event in the world, right? And you can also do like sprint triathlons. So it was like a 500-meter swim and then like a 12-mile bike and like a 5K. So very approachable. You know what I mean? It's not, and nothing too crazy. We'll get to really crazy later, but nothing too crazy. And so I did it. I actually did the doggy paddle through the swim. I didn't know what I was doing, and I did okay on the bike and the run, and I won my age group. I'm like, wow, I'm actually kind of good at this thing. And how about you guys? Like I kind of alluded to, I didn't have lots of pedigree. I didn't have anything that I was really good at per se in sports. So that self-efficacy was huge. And I just started doing more and more of them to the point where I'm like, I want to give this back to everyone else. Like what I feel, the empowerment, the overcoming what we thought we could not do. You know what I mean? Like redefining the impossible. If we can take that, harness it, and then utilize that in life. I was like, I want to do more. Anyway, so I started doing more and more and more and started coaching. So that's where that came from. Yeah.
Wow. Gotcha. Super cool. Yeah, it's addictive.
Yeah, starts out swim and then just kind of gets you, I guess, it sounds like.
Yeah, never know where it's going to take you. And it has taken you to Kona, Hawaii. Am I correct? Competing in the Ironman down there. So you've been to the World Championship 6 times, I understand, which is crazy. Talk a little bit about your experiences down there and maybe share with us a highlight from Kona.
Oh yeah. So Kona is Ironman World Championships. I've qualified 6 times. I've gone twice. It's super expensive to get out there, as you might think. I feel very blessed and grateful that I've been able to go a couple of times. And so it's like the Super Bowl of our sport. So you can do it as an age grouper, which is me, so I'm like an amateur, or you can do it as a professional. And all of the biggest names in our sport, it'd be like going down and seeing, like Mahomes, and then like, any like all the big players are down there, like every big name from every team. Think about it like that way. So that's kind of what this sport is about, so to speak, at Ironman level, at the championship level. So all these athletes from all over the world descend in this little town of Kaluhu, Kona, and like we take it over. Like it's like it is literally all that's going on in that town for like a week, maybe even 2 weeks.
Nice.
So Kona has always been the World Championships. The Ironman concept started in 1978, and it was basically, a bunch of Navy SEALs sitting around drinking and arguing what was harder. This swim that goes around Honolulu is about 2 to 3 mile swim, the bike ride that goes all the way around, or the marathon. And they're like, they couldn't figure it out, so they just put them all together. And that was the first Ironman. I think there was something like 22 people. I might be misquoting this, but like around 22 people started, and I think only like 16 finished, and then the Ironman was born. So every year now they moved it to Kona. They have this big, grander sporting event, which we call Ironman World Championships. And they say it's statistically easier to get into Harvard than it is to get into Kona. So from going from nothing to this, like, I feel very, very fortunate. For me, I feel like it comes from above, right? Like, it's one of those deals where what it takes is beyond physical. It's just mental fortitude. It's being in the right spot at the right time. It's allowing yourself to overcome, again, what you thought you could not do. So yeah, so I've been able to go twice. And then just to answer your question, you asked me like, what like a highlight.
Yeah.
I went in 2019, back when things were going on, right? Back before everything was shut down. Now we're coming out of it, but I was able to go then, and I have a team called the Wolf Pack, and they're friends and also athletes that I get to coach. And 30 people came. Like, they canceled everything they did. They spent all this money. They flew down there to support me. And I just felt incredibly humbled, incredibly grateful that people would do that. You know what I mean? Like, that's what that sport was about. And one more thing, like the name of the race, like they always have names of the race. They have like a theme, was Ohana, which means family. And it was just like, it just, it gave me the chills. It was because what ended up happening in that race, it was one of those races where it didn't go well for me, and we don't have to get into that. And all I was doing though was kind of running to my Ohana, running to my family. It was like, that was what was pulling me through, because I wasn't going to quit. So many people sacrifice so much to get to the point where I'm not going to just throw all that away. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what we do in life. Like, a lot of times, marriage gets hard, we quit. Jobs get hard, we quit. When it gets really, really hard, we quit. Why? Because we don't think about our Ohana. We don't think about all the people that sacrificed things to get to where we are. And once you allow that to happen, it becomes bigger than you, and you really, truly can do anything. Anyway, so that was the highlight of my race for sure.
Wow, that's really cool. That reminds me of when I was a senior in high school. The first half of my cross country season was really rough. And I don't know, I think mentally I just didn't have it. And there was one race where it just, same thing, was not going well for me. And I just kind of turned it off. I was like, whatever, screw it. Like, I'm just not that good. Yeah. And I was running probably towards the finish line. And it actually wasn't my own coach, which was Coach Mom. John and I both got to be coached by our parents. Pretty cool. Yeah. But a coach from another team who we're pretty good friends with came up to me after the race, and he said, like, man, Adam, I could tell you didn't have your best day, right? And I said, yeah, I really didn't. And he's like, but you can still give it all you have, even if you're not gonna have a good time, like, you can still give it your all, right? And I was like, yeah, I guess. And he's like, because that's really what it's all about, right? It's easy to do it when you're feeling great, but when you don't have your best day, you still got to push. And he's like, and that's what running's all about. And I was like, wow, that's true. That's right. And maybe I'm making this up. Maybe it wasn't that particular race, but I really picked it up the second half of the year. And I feel like just him telling me that had a lot to do with it. But yeah, those are wise words you share about just pushing through and doing it for all those who came before you.
Yeah.
All those who got you there.
Yeah. And having the whole,
go ahead.
I was just going to having like the whole support structure, the whole team, like everyone there to be there with you and experience it together, having our parents as coaches or another good friend as like a coach around, like having really the community around it, not just being as an individual.
Yeah. And that's the operative word, like the community. Like, find your community, find something that allows you to be bigger than yourself. Like our Wolf Pack on the back of our jerseys, on shirts and everything. And this is a quote that we kind of not live by, but like embraces who we are, embodies who we are, is alone we are strong, together we are stronger. And like you said, like that's how you get to do amazing things. And I was going to say, like, I don't know, but for you, Adam, it sounds like it not only helped your athletic career, and it helps your everyday, your life, your how the way you live life changes again once you start embodying these principles of allowing yourself to do things even when it's hard, even when it doesn't work out for you, even when things seem to be falling apart. If you can find a reason to keep going, man, that's gonna get you through everything and anything in life. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
One of the friends here where I work at Jerusalem Farm was saying that she loves to plant her garden, and she loves the planning and like just mapping out where everything's going to go and getting the plants to get in the ground. But then she's like on about like if she can make a few months, that's pretty good, because at some point things aren't going to go according to plan. And she's like, at that point, she's like, all right. She tells her husband, like, you can take over now. I'm happy, And but that, I think that's also like a good metaphor for life, like things aren't always going to go according to plans. Like, how do you respond to that? Even if it can't be perfect, can you make it as good as it can be in a given situation? You mentioned your team called the Wolf Pack. Could you talk a little bit more about why the team name is the Wolf Pack?
Well, my last name's Wolf. Right. And though it really came organically. It wasn't something that I created. So I was working out of a gym, and people started like just grabbing shirts. So the very first shirt we had, it was just said Wolf Pack, and they wanted to kind of associate more with that rather than the gym that I was working out of. And it just really started just taking off, because it really is more of a pack. And I know a little bit about wolves. I'm sure you guys do too. And really the neatest thing about a pack of wolves is they literally are there for each other no matter what. Couple interesting things about them. I just happen to know, I actually loved them when I was growing up. They like the leader of the wolf pack, like the alpha male. Where do you think he goes? Well, if you're walking down, walking down the street, for them it's probably woods, but walking down the woods in the path, they're going on a hunt or like a long way. Where do you think the alpha wolf positions himself?
I'm gonna guess last, based on
pretty close, like second or third to last. So he puts all of the strong youth up front, and then he has the moms and then the weak right in front of him, so he can look after them. And then there's one or two relatively strong wolves behind, and that's kind of really neat because it embodies against like the principle. I keep using that word embody, but it really does. It embodies that principle of like what I like to try to do is an organic community that's there for each other no matter what. It doesn't matter if you're first, you're last, you're old, you're young, you're big, you're small, whatever it is. Like, we're not about that. We're really about like the team and the atmosphere, which is really, really cool. And then we also have the ability to get you, to your best. And for me, like as a coach too, this is kind of a side note, like with the Wolfpack, like for me as a coach, I would rather coach the person than the athlete. And I really make that distinction because like, I want to get to know you, your life, what's going on in your life, emotional, physical, environmental, social, like anything and everything that's going on, your history. To me, if I can help you in that, you're organically going to be a better athlete. Yes, I have all these degrees and certifications, blah, blah, blah. And that's secondary to the person. So kind of with that, like every person that's a part of our pack, I feel like notices that and really enjoys that. So I have people that I haven't coached for years that still hang out with us because they love the community aspect of it. So yeah, I love our community. Yeah.
Super cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I was wondering too, right, is looking at your site and listening to people too, talking about it, just like how, because it would strike me there's sort of a balance to be struck there, right, of like between the sort of physical training and the like community, the mental aspect of things. How do you sort of approach striking that balance with your athletes of being able to support them as like a person while including the sort of athletic side of things with that? Yeah.
So, I feel like every niche has its own like platform of stuff and all the tech stuff. So I have all that, right? So I have a program that essentially allows me to communicate, deliver programming, deliver everything that I need. It's very, very sophisticated, intricate. It gives me all the data and all that analytics. It also allows me to comment and communicate with the athletes and those types of things. So for me, like, yes, we're absolutely doing physiological adaptation. We're looking at periodization, like all the big terms, all the things that are really relevant, right? I guess what I'm trying to say is like, you doing the work is kind of a entry fee. Like, you have to do it. And then what I like to do is go beyond that step, right? So if you can't do the work, then I can't really help you. You have to be able to do the work. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? You know what I mean? Yeah.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah. You could assign someone however many runs a week. And if they don't do anything, there's only so much you can do, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really neat because like I've been able, I worked with a coach. I still kind of consult with her. Her name is Julie Dibbins. She's out of Colorado. She's a 2-time Olympian, and she actually coaches all the big names in the sport. Somehow I talked her into working with me, but I learned a lot from her. And like we have, like I have at my fingertips the best of the best coaching material, right? If you don't do it though, I can't progress you. Like if you won't show up and do this, like I like to do 5 different levels of speed, so to speak. So both in the swim, bike, and the run, there's 5 different levels. If I can't develop that with you, I can't make you better. And the only way that happens is just if people do the work, right? So anyway, I guess that's kind of my thing is like, I'm looking for people that want to do the work, that are coachable, that want to go to that next level, either in their own athletic career and more so like in their own life. The way that, again, like the way that I feel like this sport allows us to take what we learn and then put it into everyday life is so powerful. That's what I guess I want for people. Yeah.
Nice.
Gotcha.
I definitely want to talk to you more about that mental side that John alluded to earlier, and how you work with your athletes to develop their mental toughness. But before I ask you that, I do want to ask you one more thing, kind of about competitive triathlon and your endeavors. I came across your website that last October 4th, you were going for the Bike Across Kansas record. And it mentioned this video on there. You're trying to go 418 miles in 19 hours or less. Could you share how that went? Did you do it? What was that experience like?
Because that's really normal, right? I mean, everybody does that.
Of course.
Right? Like, so what happened for me is like, obviously COVID was going on and all the races were canceled. And I've always wanted to ride, I've always wanted to ride across the state of Kansas. So I looked it up, and it's this thing. It's called the fastest known time, and it's a world record. And it seems somewhat doable for the crazy mind of mine. And so I trained with a buddy of mine all summer. Great buddy of mine. His name is John Arson. He's just as crazy as me. But anyway, we trained all summer together, and it's a solo endeavor. So what you do is you sign up through the World Cycling Association, and you have to read this like 50-page document of all their rules and regulations. I had to have a crew. I had to have officials. It was pretty legit, right? So I started at the Colorado border, and it was about 2 a.m. And then the goal was to end at the Missouri border at, I think it was like 10 p.m. And I had a lot of people back there. So I could go on and on about this. Essentially, it ended up being a day of mindset, of resilience, various things. I know what happened now, but I ended up throwing up within the first 4 hours of the ride, and it became very apparent that I wasn't going to make it. I didn't quit, but like just moving was going to be very, very challenging. So I ended up having to eat donuts, which, if you knew me, is the epitome of irony. I literally don't eat that. Like, it's not that they're like, I think they're bad. I just don't like them, but it was the only thing that would actually sit for more than 5 minutes. So I'm like throwing up all across Kansas, going 23 miles an hour. And then the winds were not favorable. They were supposed to be a little bit out, towards my back. They were more in my face. I kept it. It was also this thing called harvest. So all of Kansas was harvesting the wheat, which is cool. And all the trucks were going this way. And every time a truck would go by, it would like nail me. I would move side to side, and I'd have to like, crunch my stomach even more. And oh man, so it was brutal. But in Emporia, I was still on track actually to break the record, because again, I wasn't going to give up. And it's just this crazy God story. Like the way that I was working, like everything was like people were showing up that I didn't even know with the right thing at the right time in the right moments, with medicine, with this, with motivation, with like it was just insane the way this was working. And I did it for suicide awareness and depression awareness because, you know, that's that like you kind of alluded to, it's very important to me. And it was not lost on me that like how hard it was just to keep moving is kind of how we feel when we're super depressed. So that actually gave me motivation to keep going, because it's like, you know, again, like when you're in that moment, just moving, just deciding, just going forward is so hard. So like I have to, does it make sense? I had to do it. I got to Emporia and I literally, like my left eye was starting to go cross-eyed. Things were starting to go black. Again, I just wasn't retaining anything. And I started getting really shaky, like moving back and forth. I couldn't walk. I mean, I could barely, you know, I'm still pedaling down the road, but can't walk. And, you know, one of my nurse friend who was there, part of my crew, she's like, okay, here's what's going to happen. Her name is Michelle Lingenfelser. She goes, so your brain is swelling. You need to sit here, drink this. It was like this is saline, you know, and I need you just to not move and trust me for 30 minutes. Like you just need to sit and just take this. I'm like, oh, whatever. I'm like just crying because everything hurts. But got back on the bike and it got really, really cold, which was what I needed at the time. I didn't. It was like 46 degrees. So we ended up not getting the record. And I finished. Mm-hmm. You know, we ended up not getting the record, and it was so beautiful. Because like, who cares about a story of, you know, oh, it went so great. I was just flying the whole time and yeah, everything went to plan. I got the record. Yeah, who cares? Like when you can overcome, again, like the seemingly impossible, when you decide that no matter what, you're not going to quit, not for you, for a cause bigger than yourself, that's worth celebrating, right? Like we did not get the record, but man, did we win. Like success in our culture, right? Our culture, like, define success as, you know, having the great house or having the great thing or getting the win. What? No. Like the success is in the story. The success is in the journey. And what a wonderful, empowering journey it was, right? Like, I don't know. We weren't even that far off. We were like 75 to 90 minutes off. So might have to do it again.
I was going to ask if you were going to do it another time.
You got to talk to my wife about that one. We got to convince her first. So
they talk about resilience.
That's an incredible story.
Oh my goodness. That's pretty mind-boggling there. Like it's like tough for me to imagine. I biked like to the other side of town and back, and I was like huffing and puffing on the way back up the hill. I was like, man, biking all the way across the state with all of that going against you is mad impressive. That's yeah, and for a wonderful cause too, you know.
Well, right, yeah, and you know, just to caveat to that, like it's not like I just decided, hey, one day I'm gonna ride my bike across Kansas. Again, this is years and years and years of increasing volume and just being able to be in that spot. It's kind of like, you know, you going across the town for somebody might be just absolutely astronomical, right? So it's never about what you can do compared to somebody else. It's about what you can do compared to you, right? Yeah. Because I think it's great that you rode down to town and back, right? Yeah. Some people can't even go get out their house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can definitely say you have a PR now, right? Of the bike across Kansas.
I'm a Strava geek. Strava is like Facebook for triathletes and cyclists and runners and whatever. And yeah, I have the Strava segment across there. So there you go.
Yeah, people can find that like, oh wow. Wow. Speaking of sort of the mindset though, and the resilience and doing that like bike, more generally, right? You preach in a lot of different circles about having that resilience and sort of focusing on mindset, and just sort of why do these words hold such like high importance to you? What do you really like to emphasize with that when coaching or talking to other people? Yeah,
for sure. So I think there's like, I don't know, 2 or 3 things within that to kind of unpack. And I think that for me, the body is only willing if the mind is willing. So there are physiological boundaries that we know of. And at the same time, kind of like David Goggins, what he said, that like our capacity to do work is so much more than we give ourselves credit for. Really, it's going to be very challenging for your body to shut down. I've gotten to that point where I'm able to get my body, like, it's not healthy, right? And though, like, the mind then is so much more powerful, and it allows us to do things that we otherwise, again, think we could not do. And I don't know if you've heard me, I've said that like 3 times, because it's like that is the most wonderful thing I feel like in life, is like, you've heard that quote, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. I think Henry Ford said that, right? Whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. And I completely agree with that. Like the I am affirmation statements, that there's so much power behind that. Science is most certainly there. Like, we create the outcomes we want in our mind. Our brain cannot differentiate what is true from what is reality. So if you want to change your reality, speak it into existence. Like, start allowing yourself to visualize and put yourself into that situation. Okay, so what happens then when you do what you thought you could not do? Like, think about that. That's so powerful, right? So that's why I think mindset to me is so important, is because it allows us to get to that point. And once you cross that barrier, it opens up the doors. Like, your reality changes. Like, what you, maybe even sometimes in an unhealthy way, because like what you really think you can do is so much higher. Does it make sense? And I want that, again, for so many people. So to break that down and to allow people to experience that on a day-to-day basis in a very, tangible way, I think is healthy. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
for sure.
Totally. I was gonna say, sounds sort of pushing the mental boundaries in order to realize the sort of physical boundaries, the extent of what you can really do. Yeah.
Sounds or emotional or spiritual, right? Like, yeah.
I think you alluded to it there too. I think it takes desire on your part. Like, if you don't really 100% want that, then you're not going to do it, right? Yeah. Like, I think maybe I ran into that with running a little bit. Like, there are certain runners I know, like the best ones, people like yourself, who like have this edge about them. I actually got to coach cross country for a few years at the high school level. And yeah, there's just like a few people over the 3 years I coached that just had this edge to them. And like, they were completely unafraid and just really like wanted it, and that's not most high schoolers. And I think I was one of those people who's not like most high schoolers. Like, yeah, I think I pushed myself to a certain extent, but then it's like, okay, that's like kind of enough, for me. And I think that maybe I wouldn't be able to I don't know, run an Ironman or compete in Ironman, for example. First of all, because I can't swim, but second of all, because say you substituted run for the swim, I still might not be able to, just because it's not something that I really want to do. Like, my sister's in med school. I say I can't do that pretty much because I have no desire to do that. Like, I don't want to be a doctor, but for her, like, she really wants that, and she's rocking it. She's almost done in the 4th year. So I think it's that desire to me is like a huge piece of that. You have to really want it.
Oh, for sure. Right. And if you don't, that's okay. And I would, though, challenge anyone. So what in your life, though, can you apply it to? Right. Mm-hmm. So what are you willing to do that for, so to speak, and not at the expense of family and friends and career, like, but it will allow, and I'd rather say it will allow you to achieve in a different type of way. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I would challenge you, Adam, that you can't swim yet.
Okay. Maybe. Yeah. There's a time when I was in Boy Scouts, I was trying to get first class, and I was like, all right, I'm going to learn how to swim. Let's do this thing. And then I quit Boy Scouts. So I just like lost all incentive to try to learn how to swim. But who knows, maybe one day. Some of the people I live in with community with are convinced that they're going to teach me how to swim. So we'll see if that happens.
Well, go ahead. I think this is so cool. So my kids, they're a lot older now. They're in high school. When they were younger, we used to play kickball. We used to do all these things. They're very athletically inclined. Like, one of them is just like, it's really annoying. Like, anything he picks up, he's really good at. It's super annoying, right? And because we're really competitive in our family too. We're super competitive. Imagine that. All of us are super competitive. And
apples and trees.
Right? Yeah. So we were playing kickball, in the backyard, and I decided I want to learn how to kick with my left foot. And I started doing it over and over and over and over again, and I couldn't do it at first. And I got pretty good at it. Well, what if I can throw with my left hand? So I started doing that. And like things, again, that we have told ourselves over the years, I can't. You believe that. And is that true, or is it you couldn't at the time? You didn't have the patience, the process, the whatever to do it. You probably won't excel. Like, I will never be able to truly like excel at baseball. Like I really won't. I mean, you have to be really young to be able to do that. And what can I do? I could probably get better. So same thing with like basketball. Like I any of those types of sports, I like am generally not good at. And what I've noticed though is if I concentrate hard enough, if I learn, like Adam, my youngest, he'll teach me how to do these things. Anytime we're doing, like we played top golf the other day. And I'm like, Adam, how do you swing this thing? You know, like, so he's like, he shows me, I'm like, okay, I can do that. You know what I mean? So I think that we have that opportunity to be able to do those things, even if we think we can't do. I don't know. That's just mine. And to experience that is so thrilling and humbling. And, you know, as a coach, you want to coach people. So to be coached is helpful. I don't know. Just want to throw it out there.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah. Continuing learning on into life and stuff too.
Yeah. Why not?
You mentioned this before too, is that beauty of running. Sorry, John, that PR, like you're competing against yourself, you know? So just like you said, biking across town might be awesome for you. And that's cool. It's like so worth celebrating. And I just like how, you know, for each person, you really are competing against what you thought was possible, going beyond what yourself, you know, what you thought was possible, not necessarily what Michael Jordan can do or Lance Armstrong or whatever it is.
Oh, right. Yeah. And you start comparing yourself to anybody else, there's always somebody better than you. So that's where you lose the joy of what you do, right?
I was gonna say, just this is a bit of a non sequitur now, but in terms of swimming, I can't really swim either. So if you need a partner, Adam, for the like learning, I'm down. I passed the swim test to graduate college, but by doing like a floating backstroke, basically.
Hey, whatever it takes.
I'll count it. Yeah.
You graduated.
Anyway, though, back sort of on topic though. Do you, Josh, do you have any like sort of incremental kind of daily practices that sort of help with just slowly building that type of mindset?
Yeah, thanks for bringing us back. So one of the things I was going to say was like for athletes. So if I'm going to coach somebody on it, personally, like what I'll do is I might put something just a little bit out of what they think they could do, whether it's in like a succession or sequential, and then try to empower them, however their words are for them. Some people, you know, like it where you're able to, I guess, be more empowering or be more compassionate. Some people like it where you're a little bit more, not aggressive, but assertive. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not aggressive at all. Like that is not how I coach. But like you find the way that will help somebody get through that thing, and then you let them get it. And I think the biggest mistake that we make is we don't allow ourselves to fail, or we think that the fail is somehow tied to our worth. You know what I mean? Like once you separate yourself and just allow yourself to fail, you learn so much more by failing than you do by winning. So why not give yourself that opportunity? And so for me personally, what I like to do is I like to parlay that with what I'm doing in training. So today, I rode outside right before I saw you guys almost late. I got not hit by a train, but I got caught by like 20-minute delay. I'm like, I gotta go. But so I'm doing these really intense intervals. They're about 2 minutes of them, and like it took me 5 weeks to get this right, where I'll hit this ridiculously high. Well, I measure by watts. So watts is a unit of power, and I have that on my bike. I can see my watts. So I'll measure my watts and I'll try to get them like just exactly right, like no variance at a very, very high, like unsustainable, right? So like to do that, to practice that over and over and over again, like I guess for me, it's the ability to kind of reframe my thoughts. And this is a good segue into kind of what you guys were talking about with, you know, coming out of depression and suicide and all those things. When I was going through all of that, I basically took my car when I was 16 and tried to put it into a tree at 70 miles an hour. And I walked away, which is incredible. Thanks be to God. And it was truly a miracle. And as I was coming out of that, I was thinking about, I was kind of into drugs. Not kind, I was. And listening to all kinds of, negative music like Marilyn Manson, Nine Inch Nails. If you don't know who they are, don't. Like, they're not worth it. I'm like filling my mind with hatred and self-loathing. And I just felt like that myself. And I just kind of noticed the way I was talking to myself and what I was doing and who I was around. And I was like, this is just really not healthy. You know what I mean? I need to like pull myself out of this. I went to counseling and I tried, different medications and whatnot. And at the same time, I'm like, it really has to do with my thought process. Okay. So what I noticed is that I was so mean to myself, like basically hated myself. And I would talk to myself in the most self-deprecating way. So like right now is a good example. Every once in a while I might stumble over my words, or my screen's kind of coming in and out, things like that. And what I used to do is I would think about those things, obsess about those things. And that's all I would hear. And I would say, you're sounding stupid. Why did you think you could come on here? Why do you even think you can coach? I mean, I would not do, you know what I mean? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, who do you think you are? You're not a good coach. You're not a good person. You're worthless. Like, you don't belong here. Like, boom, it would just like spin out of control. And that was doing to myself all the time. And it has to do with my upbringing and whatnot. And we don't need to get into that. It was literally how my brain was wired. But that's the thing, is we can rewire our brain at any time with work, right? And it took a lot of patience, a lot of help. And I had a lot of great mentors around me that were, they didn't know what they were doing, but they were helping me out of that, right? So what I noticed is that we can reframe our thoughts. So we can basically observe our thoughts. We can decide if that thought is true or not, and then we can change it. And this is science. Like, we can literally create new synapses in our brain. Okay, so what was my biggest weakness? The whole, depression to the point of absolute, like, I'm a suicide survivor, right? I survived this incredible thing where I pretty much tried to take my own life. You can't get much lower than that. Right. So that, and coming out of like being addicted to drugs and all these other things, like, that has given me the power to change my thoughts in a way that I never thought possible. Like, I would, like, I'm about to go to my 20th year reunion. I might go, I don't know, my high school reunion. And like, people are gonna be like, who is this guy? You know what I mean? Like, who is this guy? You wouldn't even recognize me. And I say all of that because that's our opportunity, right? At any time we can start to change our thoughts. We can, observe and decide and change our thoughts. We can decide that we're worth more than we actually think we are. We can do so much more. So I guess my daily habit, John, is like allowing myself to go through that. And I literally will catch my thoughts every once in a while. Like, I'll hear myself start to say something, and I'm like, actually, this is not what I'm doing this. It's, no, thank you. That's not me. You know what I mean? That's not true. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, that for sure. One thing I actually, a friend of mine that we did a couple of times is like take the sort of negative thoughts and like write them down on paper, and then being able to look at them, right? Like you're saying, like analyzing your thoughts, like having it written down and seeing it sort of coming almost externally rather than internally. And that being a tool to try to like analyze it and think a different way about it and think like, do you really think this about yourself? Like, or can you reframe that? Can you tell yourself that isn't true? I do have, this value in this way, or I don't think about this myself. I think I have, the ability to be here to talk on camera, or the ability to go out and bike, 100 miles or whatever it is that you're telling yourself you can't do. But yeah, absolutely. That like analysis of that negative thought, and then being able to sort of self-talk in the opposite direction, I guess, if that is an accurate, maybe reflection of what you're saying there.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's super powerful. And I love to hear what you want to say, Adam. I see you about to talk. I think it's super powerful to do that in the minute to minute, second to second. You know what I mean? So like, I can't ride 100 miles. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's not. What is it that you're telling yourself like every second? Like we are around each other, like ourselves the most in all of our thoughts. Like I think it's like 90% of our thoughts, something like that. You know, most statistics are like made up on the spot. A lot of our thoughts are repeated day to day. There's nothing really new necessarily coming in our brain. So we repeat those same things. So it really truly matters how we talk to ourselves, what we think about ourselves, and what we say to ourselves. In the same way, like, you know, matter how you say, you know, when you talk to a spouse. Have you ever heard the spouse that is always berating the other person? Oh, you know, she never does anything. He never takes out the trash. He's so selfish. She all she does is sit on the phone all day, whatever it is. Like when you say that over and over, like you come to believe that. And that's how you degrade a marriage. That's how you degrade a relationship. Right. So like you believe what you say 100% of the time. So we have to be super careful what we say about, you know, ourselves really. So anyway, Adam, what were you going to say?
Oh, I enjoy listening to all that and 100% agree. When you were talking about just your experiences of kind of this, I kind of see it as a spiral pattern almost, like spiraling down into this pit that you just like, it seems like you just can't get out of. And I've had moments where I've been kind of like, man, like everything is screwed because like I am the problem and I can't change that. Like I am in my body. I am me. I can't be someone else. I'm just me. And I was like, God, I'm worthless. Like this is horrible. And I guess I'm curious because I'm thinking now, like, I mean, thankfully those moments have been very few throughout my life.
Yeah.
But I maybe we've all been there, you know, to a certain extent. And I'm kind of reflecting now. I'm like, man, what happened? Like, how did that stop? And like I said, like, luckily those moments are few and far between, but I kind of think, I kind of feel sorry for my parents for like putting them through some stuff sometimes, but I think they probably just said like, just go to your room, just like cool off for a while. And then after a while I was like, oh, okay, like I'm okay. It's kind of took time, but I'm curious to ask you, like, you know, you took us to the maybe the worst moment, and now you're here and you're just this shining example of resilience and the power of a positive mindset, and see, you know, where you've come in 20 years. But
thank you.
How did you? Yeah, this is just a blessing to have you here. But how did you kind of work your way out of that, you know, moment at 16 to where you are now?
Well, yeah, and I have to be very clear about some things. I think like mental health, we all have mental health. We don't value it like physical health, and that's one of my biggest things is right now is I want to like erase the stigma, erase our cultural, and I could go on a tangent on that. I'm not going to, but we all have mental health, right? And it's super important to recognize too that there are some times when we don't win that battle, like with our mental. Does it make sense? Like, so for me, depression is always going to be a part of who I am. And it's not who I am. I am not depression. Like I am not depressed. I have suffered from depression. It's just like, you know, if somebody has cancer, they're not cancer. If somebody's an alcoholic, they're not alcohol. Like that's not the way it works. And sometimes that's the problem is we label it and then it becomes our identity. That's not who I am. That's part of who I am. And what that means though, is that, yes, like right now, I have joy, I have hope, I have purpose. Those are my three big words. And every once in a while, it doesn't work out that way. Every once in a while, like the disease is strong enough that it pulls me down. In 2016, it was that heavy. I was coaching, I was trying to train for Ironman, and it was like the worst it had been since I was 16. What was different though, is I had perspective. I understood that all it took is hanging on for one more day. I sought out mental health professionals. Like it's really important that we do that whenever we are hurting. What I'm trying to say is that for me, 90, again, I'm going to make up 90%. I like that apparently. 90% of the time, I can keep it at bay, right? So like most of the time, if I do certain things, if I work on my own mindset, if I listen to my own thought patterns, I can keep it at bay. If I'm working on like making sure that I'm leaning into my joy givers, as I call them, and then like getting away from my triggers, which we can talk about later, like that's going to help me stay. Like there's all these things that we can do from our mental health perspective that allow us to kind of have the upper hand, if that makes sense. Just like if you're battling cancer, like it could come back. It oftentimes does. So what can you do then to help yourself, give yourself the best odds of beating it? Well, you can have a nutritious diet, you can exercise, you can, you know what I mean? You can be around positive, like there's all these things you can do. So why not do them? Okay. So how did I get from 16, like the lowest point, all the way up to here? And it really was a day by day process. And, you know, it started, and I had ups and like, I, you know, when I was 17, 18, I think I slipped back into drugs for like it was up and down, up and down. It wasn't like this steady. It's one of those deals though. Once you know, I'd love to share this with you. So when I hit this tree, I get out of the car and I'm pretty much unscathed. So 70 miles an hour makes no sense, unscathed, right? I hit a guardrail that I think slowed me down still. No seatbelt, obviously, hit my head directly on the steering wheel, get out of the car. I'm like, there's people everywhere by the time I get out of the car. I think I was unconscious for a little bit. I know I was. And like, I was asking like, why didn't I die? It made no sense. Like how does that even happen? Like, how do I not die? And like, you know, what do these poor people say? Like nothing. Right. So I actually started to run because it wasn't over. Like I was not done. I've always been super stubborn. Right. So I started to run and I'm trying to jump over this fence and this guy stops me. And this is so important to me. Like he says, I said, why didn't I die? Why didn't I die? He looked me right in the eye and he said, because God has a special plan for you. And like, I believed it. And like, take away the idea of God, if that's not good for you. Think about a special plan. Think about a purpose. Think about something that is so much bigger than you that it like pulls you out of bed, that it like gives you that power that you don't even, it's not even you pushing, right? Like it's literally like taking you and like driving you in a way that you never could by yourself. And that's what was given to me. So like, once that happened, it like changed the trajectory of everything because I felt like I had purpose. I felt like I had a plan. Like I believe it. I believed it and I still believe it. I went back to go to try to find this guy like later. I'm like, dude, this guy is amazing. I want to thank him. So I looked at the police report. I looked at everything and he didn't have an address. He didn't have a phone number. He just had one name and it was Christian. It just blew my mind. Right. So I guess for me, like how did I dig myself out? It wasn't me at all. It was the purpose and the plan that I believed in. And like, that's why that's one of my 3 words. When you read my bio, you talked about purpose, joy, and hope. Man, those are so powerful. Those are more than words. Those are like, like tangible feelings and almost like powers, right? That allow me to exist. To be honest, yeah, I've never thought about it that way, but that's true, you know.
What a story! Wow. And it's just so beautiful to think that, like, I mean, it's such a blessing to talk to you and to hear all your stories, but like that worst moment, maybe you don't categorize the worst, I don't know, but that moment of like wanting to kill yourself is part of your story and part of what makes you, and you probably wouldn't be doing all these wonderful things you're doing now had you not had that experience, and then had Christian not said like, yo, you're here for a reason, you know, like,
right?
That's amazing. And you just never know where the journey of life's going to take you. Just gotta hang on for the ride. See
gracefully broken, right? Gracefully broken.
Yeah. So you've mentioned now a couple of times, I guess, the joy givers and triggers.
Yeah.
So could you maybe just like first sort of define how you use both of those terms?
Yeah. So let's start with the negative. The negative, right? That's probably another thing too, is like, it's not that as if I'm overly positive. Like I'm probably one of the most positive people you're going to meet. And you know, sometimes things just suck. Like, let's just be honest. Like, we don't have to assign positivity to everything. That's not what I'm advocating. I guess what I'm advocating is the ability to discern the difference between truth and, you know, the lies that we tell ourselves or hear, right? Okay, so joy givers and triggers. So a trigger to me is something that's going to kind of set me back. So like if you think about an alcoholic, or somebody that's in a drug, like a trigger might be going into a bar. For some that doesn't bother them at all, right? But like putting yourself in that circumstance could be a big trigger. Also, it could be a big trigger to have like a very stressful relationship if you're fragile still, and like maybe that relationship breaks. That might be a trigger for you. Okay, so for me, then I've figured out triggers for my depression. So depression is like not sadness. Depression is an overwhelming feeling of despair that you cannot get out of no matter how much you try. It's not a matter of being more positive. Again, I want to be very clear about that. Depression is very serious, and it's a neurological thing, right? So it has to do with dopamine, it has to do with serotonin, it has to do with all of our brain hormones that get off kilter. And there's also some other components I think that we don't quite understand yet. So what though manifests like feelings? So like if I'm talking to you and you get the chills, or like you see somebody that you love and you feel a feeling, like what manifests that? Well, first it's a thought. So if you can change a thought, then you can change hopefully maybe the feeling, maybe even the action. So that's kind of where I'm coming from here. So for me, a trigger is going to like literally take away from my ability kind of to manage my own thoughts, if that makes sense. To me, and now I manage my thoughts in a way that I don't think about it as much. Every once in a while, if I'm very stressed, so if I get in a fight with my wife or somebody I really care about, it gets very hard for me to manage my own thoughts. And sometimes I'm like, I can't talk to you right now. I'm shutting down. Like, so having that ability to be able to say that is critical. And that's a huge communication thing, which we could talk about entirely too. But so a trigger for me would be stress. Like high stress is a big trigger. So what I try to do is I can't get away from stress all the time, but I can mitigate the stress that I feel. So I can try to mitigate that, doing yoga, doing other things. If I do feel stressed, taking deep breaths, taking a time out, that kind of thing. Another big stressor of mine is sleep. Now, this is huge. I would say most Americans, I won't say 90%, most, probably even more, don't get enough sleep, and most certainly don't get the quality of sleep that we need. If I don't get, if I go more than a couple nights of 7 or less hours of sleep, I am going to be extremely susceptible to depression and like just negative. Like I will literally fall apart. So for me, it's huge. I've identified that as okay. And a couple other ones like excessive caffeine, not eating, having lots and lots of sugar. I don't like it anyway. Like not exercising. So actually, it's a big way to keep me even is to do all these crazy things that I do. Because it allows me to express myself in that way and actually kind of grounds me. I'm not an anxious person, probably ADHD. I'm definitely dyslexic. So to have the ability to kind of offload all of that in a different energy way is huge for me. So I've identified all these triggers. What do you guys, and what do you like, what might be a trigger for you? Like in your own health, mental health. Can you think of that off the cuff?
Yeah, you mentioned one, like whenever you, I'm sure we can all relate to this. I don't know, maybe some people can't, but like seeing that person that you're like, oh man, I like really have a huge crush on you or whatever, and then it doesn't work out, whatever. But then if you see that person like across campus, you're like, oh, you again, whoa, it's like takes you right back,
Yeah.
Or yeah, it's just one example.
Like I say, personally, I feel like frustration is a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like trying something that I'm like not getting the hang of. There have been many times, maybe you relate to this, Adam, I don't know, but like I'm trying to learn this song on guitar and I was just can't get the like fingering down or something. And I just like keep trying to hammer away at it. So I was like, oh, like practice, but it just starts to like hammer me down into a hole of like, I just cannot do this. And then I can't do this turns into, I can't do anything.
That's it, right? Sure. That's it. Yeah. So, and then if you're susceptible to any, like, and we all have mental health, and most of us are susceptible to any of these, like anxiety, depression, eating disorders, which is kind of a weird name, except it's like any of these mental health conditions that are have the negative connotation to them. I mean, they are negative, like diseases. Like we're all somewhat susceptible, especially coming out of COVID, right? So that can definitely lend yourself to going down that path. So again, I'll try to avoid those triggers or mitigate them. And then reversely, I try to find what I've cutely named like the joy givers. Again, it's not a matter of trying to be overly positive. It's kind of basically recognizing that our mental health is as critical as their physical health. So you start coming down with the flu, like what do? You go to bed, you sleep, you try to get yourself to you're not, number one, you don't feel like it, and it's not good to get other people sick. And like you just literally know, I gotta sleep, I got it. I'm gonna take some, I'm gonna take chicken broth for the electrolytes. I'm gonna do all these things to try to get myself better. So that's how I see it from like a joy giver. I want to do things that maybe can help me get better. So what are things that bring me joy? I love Chipotle. I like decide, hey, I'm just gonna go to get some Chipotle. I'm gonna walk the dogs. We're gonna go to the woods. I love being out in nature. I'm like not gonna work as much today. Like, I'm gonna give myself that opportunity to lean into some things that I usually find joy with. And it's not to say that it's gonna take it away. It is to say that maybe it can lessen it and allow me to kind of get on top of that depression that I might be feeling, or just like allow myself to at least remember what a glimpse of hope feels like if I am in a really depressive state. So
yeah. It's interesting too, of like the parallel in terminology. I feel like for physical health, caregiving is often a big thing that people sort of look to like heal your body, right? And so I think that strikes me. I like that a lot. Just the idea of like joy giving maybe as things that help with the mental health side of it. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, right? I guess caregiver implies a person, but doesn't necessarily have to be a person that's a joy giver, but anything that brings that joy, like you have in your right behind you there. Big
I know, right?
Joy.
Yeah, if you kids see it, I have a big thing that's called joy. My mom gave me that. It's pretty cool. But I love your analogy, John. That's on point for sure. Yeah.
Gotcha.
You really share. You're a public speaker, and you like you read in your bio, and you share this wisdom with people of all different backgrounds and companies and businesses and athletes and what have you. Do you have an experience to share that really impacted you? I'm sure everyone that goes to your events is like, wow, that was amazing. I know I'm feeling that right now, just talking to you for this last hour on the podcast. But have you had experience with the audience, some experience, somebody really reflected back upon yourself? You're like, wow, that was amazing. Like I'm a different person after having that experience, just in terms of all our experiences speaking.
So let me make sure I understood. Are you asking me, have I been to a talk where I felt that from somebody else, or I've given a talk? Yeah,
sorry, that was a meandering, not very well thought out question. So like, I think if an audience goes to hear one of your talks, like you definitely impact them, and I think they walk away thinking like, wow, that was amazing. And I think not a talk that you've been to, but a talk that you gave yourself. Have you had an experience like you learned anything from the audience, or somebody came up to you afterwards or something, and that has really like stuck with you? And wow, that was something I really learned from that experience.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things come to mind. So I'm going to just go off, and I'll come back from your question real quick. So the thing about speaking is like, I'm a big believer in affirmation. So hear me out here. Like, I'm not the best public speaker. I don't have these amazing thought out prose analogy. I don't sound like poetry. You listen to Jim Rohn, and he's like a poet, right? I think I have the ability to maybe get there one time. Right now, I'm not. So think about that. I don't let that limit me. I let the power of the story, because I feel like we all have a story to share. I let the power of that story take over, or almost like be the limelight rather than my words. Because at the end of the day, like, who cares? It's not my story to keep. I'm here for a reason. And I feel very, very called, compelled, pushed, pulled to share it. Like, I just can no longer keep it to myself. So I share it everywhere I go. Okay. And that's important too, because like when a lot of this came, like me speaking almost as a career, a part of my career, I'd rather say, it comes from the Ride Across Kansas. I was thinking like, I need to share this more often. Like, I've been doing this, sharing this story or just speaking in general for a long time. Like my bio says, however, like I've kind of done it on the side. I just kind of like sprinkle it here and there. And for me, I can only work with so many athletes. Like right now, I'm pretty much capped out on my athlete list. I I can only work with so many people. That means I can only make so much of an impact. If I'm truly called to make a big impact, what's the next step? I have to share it in a big audience way. So like, that's kind of where I came to that. Okay. So when I'm talking to different audiences and whatnot, I've been to a lot of schools lately. I've been to a lot of youth lately, and things that came to mind when you kind of share that is like, people will come up and they'll ask questions like, I shared about my dad. My dad passed away in, I think, 2013 from lung cancer. He was an alcoholic. I'm pretty sure till the day he died, which was devastating for my entire family, just the way that my upbringing came. And it kind of speaks a little bit to why I feel the way I do. And then quick side note, it doesn't mean that if you have a great family, if you have a great life, doesn't mean something's wrong with you for being depressed or anxious. It's part of it. Sometimes it's not a product of our environment, right? So for me, that was a big part of it. Okay. So somebody comes up to me afterwards and they're like, well, it was actually this little girl. She goes, I think she was in 6th grade. She's like, I have a friend whose dad is not supportive of her. How did you get through that? Or how can I get through that? And so what was powerful about it, like, you're talking to these kids and you just never know what you're going to say that it's going to be impactful. Like, we have that opportunity, all of us, like walking down the road, you never know who you're going to run into. You might say something to them that truly can change the trajectory of their life. That's powerful, right? And it's not meant to scare anybody. It's just meant to be like, wow, we have that ability. So that was one thing. I'm like, this kid picked up on that one thing, not anything else I said, just one thing, right? And then I said, well, for me, I think that, finding somebody I trust to talk to was super helpful. I had probably said in that talk, I don't know, 20 times, if you feel uncomfortable, text 741-741. It's a free suicide prevention line, or depression. They'll help you anytime. Text 741-741. Call them. You can talk to any of the counselors here. You can talk to any of your parents. Like, I said it over and over and over, right? And she came up to me, like, what can I do? And I said, well, maybe try to talk to somebody like an adult or a counselor. Oh, sounds great. Like, but like, you know what I mean? Sometimes we just don't hear it until it's personal. So I don't know. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah. That almost is something that it's like, growing up in school, we had speakers all the time at assemblies, and I know people would go up to them afterwards and ask them questions like the one you just shared. And putting myself in that speaker's shoes, I think I kind of like public speaking. I think I just like the thought of like preparing stuff, and I think I'm pretty good at preparing stuff and practicing it a lot and delivering it. But then to be faced with a question like that and have to answer right on the spot, I'm like, whoa, that's something that I would be I have to work at.
It's a whole different ball game of more improvisational in some ways, or just more less prepared. Yeah, less.
Sometimes that's like the best though, because it's like almost more organic. It is more organic, maybe more even, I don't know, truthful or authentic. I might say.
Yeah.
Well, this has been an amazing hour. Thank you so much, Josh, for talking with us. I've learned a lot. I'm really glad that you've shared all your stories and wisdom with us on this podcast. Unfortunately, we are about out of time here, but before we let you go, we wanted to ask you real quickly. We ask all our guests at the end of an interview, why is sports important?
Oh yeah, I think I hit that, right? But it allows us, again, the opportunity to do things that we thought we could not do. And then we can apply that to like everyday life. And it just gets us out there and moving and active, gives us a community, and it gives us something, just for me, it's self-efficacy that otherwise I wouldn't have gotten. So that's why sports are important to me.
Well said. Thank you very much. And last but not least, thank you for all the work you do. And your website is coachjwolf.com.
Yep, like the animal, coachjwolf.com. Yep.
coachjwolf.com. How can people support your work that you do in terms of mental health awareness and public speaking? Yeah,
I'm on Instagram too, Coach J Wolf. Sometimes I'll share that kind of stuff for sure, more and more. And I'm always looking for places to speak to. September is Suicide Awareness Month. If you have a school, if you have a team or even a business that you'd like me to come speak to, I'm accepting applications for that, so we can do that. But I am here to truly, help overcome that mental health disparity and shine the light. Like you talked about, you said it just perfectly, shine the light on the shame around suicide. The more we talk about it, the less darkness can prevail. It's kind of like light, right? Light, darkness does not exist. It's only absence of light. So if we can shine light on something, we can allow it to, it loses its power. So, yeah.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Well,
Awesome.
thanks for all the light you've been shining.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, guys. You've been a great host. Thank you so much.
It's been great. Awesome. Well, that about does it, folks. From the mountains of Maryland to the banks of the Missouri. Thanks to all the listeners from points in between and not in between. Until next time, he's John and I'm Adam. Stay classy, Frostburg.